Hello everyone! Blizzard has announced a new Hearthstone adventure focused around Blackrock Mountain, and one of you asked me if I could tell the story behind the place, tell you what exactly happened here. I thought this was a great idea, since the area has played a massive role in several stories, so sit back, relax, and I hope you'll enjoy the story. Let's begin with talking about the creation of the mountain, since it wasn't always there. It was created by accident, and the story behind it is told within the War of Three Hammers, which took place around 230 years ago. Once the three dwarven clans, Bronzebeard, Wildhammer and Dark Iron, they all lived in relative peace within the mountains of Ironforge. They were all ruled by one king, Modemus Envolmar, but a civil war erupted when their king passed away. All three clans, they tried to conquer each other over dominance of Ironforge, but the victor was the Bronzebeard clan. They banished the other two clans, to which the Wildhammers, they moved to build the new city of Grim Batol, while the Dark Iron Dwarves, they moved away to build their city called Farazan within the Red Ridge Mountains. The city, it was named after their leader, and for a time, the clans, they actually did pretty well for themselves, but the Dark Iron Dwarves, they were unable to swallow their defeats. Their leader, Farazan, he led an assault upon Ironforge itself, while his sorcerer's wife, Modgut, she led the charge upon Grim Batol. They came very close to taking these two cities, but eventually, both the armies failed. Farazan was able to retreat back to his own city, but his wife, she lost her life at Grim Batol, and from that moment on, the place was cursed. The combined armies of Grim Batol and Ironforge, Wildhammer and Bronzebeard clans, they combined their might and they were intent on taking out Farazan and the Dark Iron Dwarves. Before they could reach them though, tragedy struck. Farazan, he wanted to summon a supernatural minion that would ensure his victory over the other clans, but instead, he called upon the ancient powers sleeping beneath the worlds. To his shock, and ultimately his doom, the creature that emerged was more terrible than any nightmare he could have imagined.
By fire be purged!
Farazan accidentally had summoned Ragnaros the Firelord from the elemental plane. The force of Ragnaros entering the world, it scorched the land, shattered the Red Ridge Mountains and created the raging volcano at the center of the devastation, the mountain we now call Blackrock Mountain. The Dark Iron Dwarves would be enslaved by the Firelord, while the Wildhammer and Bronzebeard Dwarves, they returned home. They saw the devastation from a distance, they wanted nothing to do with that, and upon returning home, the Wildhammers, they found out that killing Modgut had left an evil stain upon their fortress, which made it uninhabitable. The Bronzebeard clan, they offered the Wildhammer clan a home within the borders of Ironforge, but the Wildhammers, they decided to move to the hinterlands, where they built their city of Airy Peak and create a bond with the local griffins. So at this point in time, Blackrock Mountain and the area we see it around it, it was created, and many Dark Iron Dwarves, including their king, including the 7 who had helped them with his spell, they all lost their lives. Those that survived, they were enslaved to Ragnaros, but they still held their own king, which eventually became Dakran Farazan, descendant from the original Farazan. The Dark Iron Dwarves wouldn't be the only one to create a home within the mountain, since many years later, the Horde would invade Azeroth, and they made Blackrock Mountain their main base of operations. The Horde's war chief, he used to be Blackhand of the Blackrock clan, but his second in command called Orcam Doomhammer, he had found out that Blackhand was just a puppet of Gul'dan, and the Gul'dan did not care about the Horde. All Gul'dan wanted was more power, he would use anything, he would use his people, so Doomhammer did what had to be done. He took out his war chief and he took control of the Horde. As you might have already realized, Blackrock Mountain and the Blackrock clan, they share the same name, but this was just a coincidence. The mountain, it was not after the clan, or vice versa, the clan was not named after the mountain, but the orcs, they did see this as a good omen. When Orgrim spoke to his troops, rallied them before they would try to conquer all of Azeroth, the mountain started to rumble. It almost seemed to encourage them, and again, they took this as a good sign. Unfortunately for the Horde, even though the signs were there, they would eventually lose the war, even after enslaving the dragon aspect Alexstrasza and forcing her children to fight for them. In front of Blackrock Mountain, they made their final stand against the alliance of Lordaeron, and even though Doomhammer was able to take out their leader Anduin Lothar, he himself was knocked out by Turellian. The orcs that surrendered right there were placed in internment camps and put to hard labor, while the alliance followed those that ran away all the way back to the Dark Portal. Rend and Main Blackhand, sons of former war Chief Blackhand, they tried to make a stand against Turellian, but they ran away once they realized that this paladin, he had the upper hand. The alliance, they destroyed the Dark Portal, while Rend and Maim, they secretly returned to Blackrock Mountain and they made it their home. They welcomed any orc that were able to escape. They even liberated a few orcs from internment camps, and they called themselves the Dark Hordes. 2 years later, when the original Horde returned for their second invasion, they didn't come to conquer Azeroth. This time, all they wanted were a few artifacts which they could use to open more portals to conquer different worlds. The Death Knight Terangor had found out that Rend was leading the orcs that were left behind on Azeroth, and they still had the red dragons under their control. They needed these dragons in order to accomplish their mission, so Terangor, he requested Rend's aid, and Rend flat out refused. He didn't see any reason to help the Horde, considering that they were the ones who not only held their ground against the Alliance, but they'd also grown over the years. This refusal came as a terrible blow to Terangor, but thankfully for them, not all was lost. The Black Dragon aspect Deathwing, he came to an orcs with a deal. He wanted the orcs to bring his Black Dragon axe to Draenor, and in exchange he would help the orcs with their mission. The deal was made, but Deathwing, he's a master planner and manipulator, and he always had several little plans and schemes going on at the same time. He charged his children, Onyxia and Nefarian, with different tasks. Onyxia, she was sent to infiltrate Stormwind, manipulate affairs from within, while Nefarian, he was sent into the mountain and turn the Dark Horde into allies. While there, Nefarian did not only bring the Dark Horde to his side, he also experimented on creating a whole new dragonflight, combining all the colors into one, the so-called chromatic dragonflights. Now, there were two factions fighting over dominance within the mountain, as we have the Dwarves and Ragnaros on one side, Nefarian and the Dark Horde on the other side, and both of them were a great threat to the world of Azeroth. This brings us to the events of classic World of Warcraft, where we were sent into Blackrock Mountain to take care of business. Many different storylines took place within the mountain and the area surrounding it, so I can't go into every little detail, but I will talk about the major storylines. First of all, the Dark Iron Dwarves and Blackrock Depths. Even though the Dark Iron Dwarves were enslaved to Ragnaros, they were still able to carry out their own plans. The leader of the Dwarves, Emperor Dagran Fauruzan, he had his people kidnapped the daughter of King Magni Bronzebeard and bring her back to their Shadowfort city. Moira Bronzebeard, she was an only child, and although Magni loved his daughter, he never showed her any respect. He always wanted a son to rule the throne after him, and he was disappointed that Moira was not a male heir. When Moira arrived in Shadowfort City, she was not treated as just any regular prisoner. Dagran, he showed her respect, he listened to her, and despite claims of Dagran using magic to get her on his side, in truth, Moira fell in love, she married Dagran, and she became pregnant. Magni Bronzebeard, he sent adventurers into the depths to retrieve his daughter, and after battling her way through the vast city, during the final encounter, you actually had the option to either kill Moira or keep her alive. Lore-wise, Moira, she was always saved by the adventurers, and she would later return with a fiery rage in her heart. She hated those that had killed her beloved. She had given birth to his son, and when her father was turned into a crystal, around the time of the Cataclysm, Moira arrived to claim her rightful place as heir to the throne. This eventually led to the Council of Three Hammers as we see it today, in which all three clans, Bronzebeard, Wildhammer and Dark Iron, they're all represented by a single leader. Moira is working hard to prove that the Dark Iron Dwarves are a valuable asset to the Alliance in order to give her son a brighter future.
In time, my son shall rule the Dark Irons, and perhaps all Ironforge as well.
Time will tell if Moira remains loyal to the Alliance, and who knows what her son might do in the future when he finds out what adventurers did to his father. Now, Moira and the Dwarves, they weren't the only ones affected by political games. Like I said, Onyxia, she was sent by Deathwing to infiltrate Stormwind. She disguised herself as Lady Katrana Prestor. From within the city, she manipulated events, which led to the Stonemasons Guild rioting in the streets, the death of Varian's wife Tiffin, the creation of the Defiance Brotherhood, and the kidnapping of Varian himself. Onyxia had a plan in mind to split Varian in two. On the one hand, you had a weak-willed Varian that she could manipulate from behind the curtains, and on the other hand, you had a strong-willed Varian that she would simply kill off and dispose. Despite her best efforts, her plans were interrupted, and the strong-willed Varian, he managed to escape. The weak-willed Varian, he was later ransomed back to Stormwind, resumed leading the city, but people noticed a change in their king. He was affectionate towards Lady Prestor, and Anduin, he had concerns, so he asked people to investigate. In-game, this resulted in adventurers going into the Blackrock Depths and rescue Marshal Reginald Windsor from his prison. Windsor, he discovered Prestor's secret, that she was actually Onyxia in disguise, but before he could make the report, he was ambushed by a Dark Iron raiding party, and he was imprisoned. This led to one of the most annoying escort quests ever placed in the game, but eventually they were able to liberate him, bring him back to the city, where he exposed Onyxia for who she truly was, and as a reward, he lost his life to the Black Dragon herself. Now, lore-wise, things happen a little bit different. In the comics, the honor of liberating and escorting him is given to the strong-willed Varian and his friends. They were the ones who entered Blackrock Depths, who liberated the Marshal, exposed Onyxia, and in response, Onyxia, she killed the Marshal, and she kidnapped Anduin to her lair. Both the weak-willed and the strong-willed Varian, they decided to work together in saving their son, and in their confrontation, Onyxia, she blasted them both, restoring Varian to one single being. Both in-game and in the comics, Onyxia was slain in the end, and they proudly presented her head to the people by hanging it in the capital city. This left her brother inside Blackwing Lair, together with the Dark Horde led by Rand, since his brother Main by this time had been killed in a savage battle with the Dark Iron Dwarves. Nefarian's experiments on the different flights, naturally they drew attention, and the Red Dragon Philastras, son of Alexstrasza, he is sworn to take down Nefarian. Back in the day, in order to enter Upper Blackrock Spire, you had to get a ring, which involved a pretty big and pretty difficult questline. Philastras, he was the one who helped you out with getting this ring, and if you had this item with you during the encounter, then the image of Philastras would actually show up and help you out. Once you were actually able to enter UBRS and only one person in the raid had to have the key, then at the end you could attune yourself to enter Blackwing Lair and take on Nefarian himself. During the second encounter within Blackwing Lair, we actually see Philastras in his dragon form, and he's trying to take on Nefarian. He is no match for the Black Dragon's powers though. He gets corrupted himself, he's turned against his former allies, and we're forced to put him down.
Flame! Death! Destruction! Cower mortals before the wrath of Lord... No! I must fight this! Alexstrasza, help me! I must fight!
There was just one of the many enemies we had to face within Nefarian's domain, since he had several races working for him, several black dragons guarding the lair, and of course several chromatic dragons more than willing to take us out. One by one they fell, until the Lord of Blackrock himself was all that remained.
Let the games begin.
Even the mighty Nefarian, he was beaten, and the operations and the experiments within Blackwing Lair, they were stopped. The head of Nefarian, similar to his sister, it was taken back to the capital city, it was displayed for all the people to see that this mighty black dragon had fallen. With the Black Dragon flight and the Dark Horde out of commission, we focused our attention on the threats summoned by the Dark Iron Dwarves. I know that this is not the way that they released the raids, but it was more fluent for the storyline. Anyways, after the small attunement quest, which required us to go into Blackrock Depths and collect a core fragment, we were ready to teleport into the molten core. The Hydraxian Waterlords, a faction of water elementals, sworn enemies to the armies of Ragnaros, they helped us out with this task. Once enough reputation was earned, they gave us Aqual Quintessence, which was used to douse the ruins within the molten core and allowed us to take on Major Domo Executus. We were unable to kill Executus, but he was kind enough to awaken his lord, and his lord was more than willing to finish the job.
You have failed me, Executus. Justice shall be met indeed.
The Firelord had risen, an army of heroes, they took on the flames, and they actually managed to win the day. They were unable to completely destroy Ragnaros, since that would only be possible within his elemental plane, the so-called Firelands. That didn't happen until many years later, but for now the threats within Blackrock Mountain were taken care of. The armies of Ragnaros, the armies of Nefarian, the Dwarves, the Goblins, Elementals, Demons, Dragons, Orcs, Trolls, all of it were taken on and taken out. It seems like the story would end here, but there's nothing like a little revamp, a little bit of resurrection to reboot a story.
And all will burn beneath the shadow of my wings.
The Black Dragon Deathwing had spent his time recovering in Deepholm, and he has come back to destroy the world. Displaying the heads of his children might not have been the best idea in the world, but thankfully he didn't instantly destroy us. Instead, he worked on more schemes and more plans. Nefarian was resurrected by his father, and he took up residence within the Blackrock Mountain once more. This time he moved in deeper within the mountain, within the area known as Blackwing Descent.
Mortals that fancy themselves heroes have entered the broken hall. Oh, I do hope this raid will amuse me more than the last.
During this raid, we encounter several bosses. You have the Omnitron defense system, which was created by the Dark Iron Dwarves and taken by Nefarian for his own purposes. There's Magma, a beast summoned from the Firelands centuries ago by the Dark Iron Dwarves. You had Chimerian, a hideous experiment that needed to be killed. Atramidas, another experiment gone wrong who has lost his ability to see. And then there was Maloriak, a young human alchemist kidnapped by Nefarian, and he was fused with the corpse of a dragon spawn. All of them were quite interesting bosses, but Nefarian's greatest achievement within this area is the resurrection of his own sister.
Behold the broodmother, Onyxia, reborn. Perhaps my finest work.
She, together with her brother, were the final encounter of the raid, and by killing them, we prevented them from doing any more harm to the world. Even though Nefarian's experiments, they would echo on and cause more trouble elsewhere, but this video, it's focused on the mountain, and there's one mystery in the mountain that I want to talk about. After the Cataclysm revamp, they've added new quests to Blackrock Depths, and on the Alliance side, we see a faction called Morgan's Militia. The militia, it has always been around the mountain, they always gave quests, but this time we actually see their leader show up, and they put you on the task of taking out Emperor Dakran Fauruzan. I'm not entirely sure how this all works with Moira's storyline, considering she's pissed that people killed her husband, but the messy lore continues. When you turn on the quest, they say the following: she may have lost her land and family when Ragnaros torn this land asunder. But with the Dark Irons crippled, we'll be able to safely build a new kingdom of our own within the burning steppes. Not even the Firelord himself will be able to breach the capital's walls. It says that Morgan has lost her land and family when Ragnaros tore the land asunder, but that event, it took place around 230 years ago, so something doesn't add up. There's been a bit of speculation as to how she lived so long, and one theory is that Morgan is actually a black dragon, but to me it seems unlikely. It's not impossible, it just seems a little bit unlikely. A far more interesting theory, in my opinion, is that she's actually a ghost of a person that was blown up as Blackrock Mountain was formed, because the Redwich lands and all the area around it, it most likely had humans inside of it, and when the dwarves summoned Ragnaros, all of it was destroyed, and it's not unreasonable to think that she was destroyed and blown up as the mountain was created. Truth be told though, I think that Blizzard just didn't really pay attention to this specific storyline. We also see that the king that we already killed during Classic, he's back. So yeah, there are many things that you could give a spin to it. If you want to give a lore reason, you could say that she found a magical way to expand her life, or maybe she found the fountain of youth. Maybe she is a dragon, maybe she is a ghost, you know, it's a fantasy story. Who knows, but you can give a spin to it. That mystery aside though, the story is not yet complete. With Warlords of Draenor, the Dark Portal turned red, and Blackrock Mountain received a few new visitors. Warlord Zaela and some of her orcs, they made their way into Upper Blackrock Spire, where they worked on their Doomsday device, which would destroy all of Stormwind. Heroes of both the Alliance and the Horde, they went into the mountain once more, and they were greeted with references from the past.
Wait a second. It's coming back to me. This is Blackrock Spire. And we are here to vanquish evil and get me some much needed loot.
Leroy Jenkins. And for those that don't know Leroy, you can check the description for the video. Anyways, Leroy, he's dead on the floor, and adventurers, they can resurrect him to finally get him his devout shoulders. During the Commander Tarbeck encounter, we once again get help from a dragon, only this time it's not a red dragon, it's the blue dragon Abi. Back in the day, you could find Abi as a young dragon whelp who was kidnapped to be used in the Nefarian's experiments. They tossed him out to be killed, we saved his life, and now he returned to repay the favor. Now we're taking out Zaela, we make sure that the Iron Horde's plans to destroy Stormwind are prevented, and with that, we end the final story of the mountain. Like I mentioned before, there are a lot of storylines, a lot of events, a lot of characters and races that occupy the mountain, that has happened around the mountain, and I don't think I'll ever be able to tell all of the individual storylines. I do hope that you got a better understanding of why this mountain was so important to the lore of Warcraft, and I truly hope that you enjoyed the stories. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you're going to have a great week. Subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time, guys, see ya!
Have ye heard the rumblings? The mountain stirs once more. Beneath its crags, cliffs, and rocks, there's evil in its core. Fire made flesh,
dragon's breath, teeth and claws and flame, calling any heroes out there that are brave, or just insane. Blackrock Mountain, a Hearthstone adventure.